and that we were able to put forward a strong female candidate from the NPP. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much for your presence here. We appreciate the time that you've invested in this event. We know that all of you are very busy people. This is a hard time for many of you here, for most of you here, as it is for the majority of people in this country. So we really appreciate your presence here, and we also would like to acknowledge the interest you're showing in the Jathika Jana Balawegaya, in the NPP, and we will try our best to accommodate all your questions and to respond to any concerns that you have, and use this opportunity to for you so that we can really present our economic plan and our policy to you. So my task today is to actually talk a little bit about the NPP. Even while I was sitting here, there were many people who asked me this question, and I get asked this question quite a lot. So we also wanted to use this opportunity to really explain to you what the NPP is, what the Jathika Jana Balawegaya is, and how we came together and who we are. So the NPP is a coalition. It's a coalition of over 28 organizations. We were established in 2019. We came together as a result of a long conversation that started around 2015 for the need for a platform, for a progressive platform, where people who shared basically similar ideas about the country, about the direction the country was taking, and about the solutions that we could offer for some of the problems that we saw, an analysis and understanding of the problems as well as solutions. And this was a conversation that started sometime in 2015. And gradually we felt the need to come together as a political platform. One of the things that we discussed was also the need for a grassroots-led political movement. This was one of the things that we talked quite extensively about, and I will talk about that a little later and explain why exactly we focused on building the NPP, the Jathika Jana Balawegaya, as a grassroots-led movement. And as a result of these extensive conversations and dialogues between different organizations and movements, we formally launched the NPP in 2019, somewhere in March or April of 2019. And our aim was and is to build up a grassroots-led political movement, a progressive political movement, a movement that comes together, where different organizations could come together to really address some of what we thought are the critical issues of the country. So in that sense, our aim is to address some of the critical issues in the political culture of the country. We work towards establishing a non-corrupt, transparent, and accountable political culture. We also want to strengthen economic democracy. And what we mean by economic democracy is that we found that the levels of participation in the economy are somewhat unequal, that not everybody gets to participate in the economy equally or to benefit from the economy equally, that there are huge inequalities when it comes to regional disparities, to disparities in terms of socioeconomic class, various factors. And so that the inequality in our country was growing. Despite the economy also growing, the inequalities in the economy were also growing. And we saw this as potentially a very critical political issue as well. So by economic democracy, what we basically mean is that we want to broaden the participation in the economy as well as to ensure a fairer distribution of economic benefits based on the participation in the economy. We also stand for strong social protection. That is, we think that, especially for a country like Sri Lanka, strengthening and protecting our human capital is one of the key things that we need to do, because it's also an area, key investment in terms of making our economy stronger, making our country stronger, and making sure that the economy actually works for people. So with a focus on strengthening and investing in human capital, we also believe that it's essential that there are strong social protection mechanisms. And by strong social protection mechanisms, it is not just a sort of a old-fashioned welfare model that we are thinking of, where you, in a way, the main economy creates conditions that create vulnerability, and then you have sort of badly targeted social protection schemes, but rather an economy and a society that is built on strengthening strong social protection mechanisms. And finally, we also want to address the issue of an inclusive and democratic inclusive and democratic Sri Lankan identity. We think in the last 75 years, we are soon to be celebrating 75 years of independence in a rather dismal moment for our country, nothing much to celebrate. But when we look back on those 75 years, it is not just the economy that has crashed. It is also the social and cultural fabric of our country. There's division, there's a lot of social problems in the country. We talk of the drug menace, we talk about violence, we talk about crime. All of these things are also a result of bad decisions that policymakers have made over the last 75 years. So in that sense, we also want to work towards ensuring that the country that we construct is inclusive, where everyone feels involved, feels a sense of belonging, and also has a respect for democratic traditions and ideals. So as I mentioned right at the beginning, the NPP is primarily, we wanted to build a grassroots political movement, because we felt that, as Rai also talked about in her introduction, that the main issue with the crisis right now is also a crisis in our political culture, where there's a huge dependency on political authorities for addressing anything. For any problem, there's a huge dependency that's created on the political class. And we see that as a negative factor, because we think that this dependency is actually what is at the root of corruption as well, right? So instead of this sort of dependent and highly corrupt political culture, we feel that rather what we need is a strong and mobilized citizenry, a citizenry who can collaborate or who can address the political authority on equal terms, right? And a relationship between the political authorities and the citizen, which is based on respect and a more democratic engagement, rather than one that is based primarily on patronage and violence. So this focus on changing the political culture, which is one of our key aims, and one of which is primarily around the issue of corruption. But we don't mean just by corruption, what we mean is not just about financial corruption. It's not just about the commissions that we put into that go into people's pockets. It's also about the corruption that has distorted the policy-making process, where decisions are made based on commissions, based on how much you make out of a project, rather than what is good for the country, what is good for the citizens. So corruption has really gone really deep into our system, where the decision-making process itself has become highly distorted. So finally, I'll say something very brief about the structure of the NPP. The NPP has a steering committee which consists of two representatives from each of the organizations that and movements that are part of the movement, part of the alliance. So many of you often ask, is the NPP the same as the JVP? We are not. The JVP is also one of the members of the alliance, and they have the equal representation and equal voice in our steering committee. We have an executive council, a national executive council. We also have district level executive councils, and then we have local NPP councils which we set up over the last 1 year at each electoral division, like at Kottasa Sabha. So at each Kottasa, in each Kottasa electoral division, we have a NPP People's Council as well. මම ඉතාමත්ම කෙටියෙන් සිංහලෙන් වචන කීපයක් කියන්නම්. අපි 2019 ආරම්භ වුණේ ජාතික ජන බලවේගය හැටියට ප්‍රගතිශීලී දේශපාලන ව්‍යාපාරයක අවශ්‍යතාවයක් අපිට දැනුන නිසා තමයි අපි මේ විදියට සංවිධානය වුණේ. දැන් වෙනකොට අපේ ජාතික ජන බලවේගය තුල සංවිධාන 28ක විතර එකමුතුවක් අපි පෙනී හිටින්නේ අදූෂිත විනිවිදභාවය සහ වගවන දේශපාලන සංස්කෘතිය වෙනුවෙනුත් ආර්ථික ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදය ශක්තිමත් වන ආර්ථිකයක් වෙනුවෙන් ශක්තිමත් සමාජ ආරක්ෂණයක් සඳහා සහ ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදී විනිවිදභාවය විවිධත්වය ගරු කරන ශ්‍රී ලාංකීය අනන්‍යතාවයක් වෙනුවෙන් පෙනී ඉන්න බිම් මට්ටමේ සිට පුරවැසියා ශක්තිමත් කරන දේශපාලන ව්‍යාපාරයක්. ඒ අපේ ව්‍යුහය තුල අපිට මෙහෙයුම් කමිටුවක් තියෙනවා, ජාතික මෙහෙයුම් කමිටුවක්. ඒ මෙහෙයුම් කමිටුව තුල අපේ සංවිධාන එකතුවෙන් දෙන්න ඒ කමිටුවේ ඉන්නවා. ඊට පස්සේ අපිට ජාතික විධායක සභාවක් තියෙනවා. ඒ මෙහෙයුම් කමිටුවෙන් ගන්න ප්‍රතිපත්තිමය තීරණ ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙන්නේ ඒ ජාතික විධායක සභාව තුලින්. දිස්ත්‍රික් විධායක සභා තියෙනවා, ඊළඟට අපේ කොට්ටාස සභා තියෙනවා. ඔය ව්‍යුහය හරහා තමයි අපේ ප්‍රතිපත්ති නිර්මාණය වෙන්නේ, ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙන්නේ. මම හිතන්නේ අද දවස තුල අපේ මාතෘකාව වෙන්නේ අපේ ආර්ථික වැඩපිළිවෙල ගැන. ඉතින් ඒක පිළිබඳව දැන් මම ඊළඟ අපේ ප්‍රසන්ටේෂන් එකට ඉඩ දෙමින් නැවත වතාවක් ඔබ සියලු දෙනාටම ස්තුතිවන්ත වෙනවා ඔබේ කාලය මේ සාකච්ඡාව වෙනුවෙන් වෙන් කිරීම පිළිබඳව. බොහොමත්ම ස්තුතියි. Thank you very much.